9:30 on a Thursday night, and you are tuned into Beltway Radio and Beyond, which can mean one and only thing. If this is Chip Chat, welcome to Chip Chat, everybody. I'm Chip. Who are you, Tez?
You just told him, buddy.
Man, it is a exciting, busy Thursday. As you can tell, we're in the midst of a game, which, you know, if we understand that you want to watch the Caps, you can just listen to us later. You can tape us. You can tape the game. It's fine either way.
Find us in wherever you find podcasts.
Yeah. And I realize the phrase "you can tape this" makes no sense, but you know what it means.
No, a lot of people, our listeners obviously know what it means. But if this so happened to go to somebody, you know, who was not from the analog era, taping this, you know, even if you said that even if you used for television and said you're TiVoing it, like, I guess maybe TiVo's turned into like the Kleenex, right, of recording television.
Nobody says DVR. They say TiVo.
But then I don't know if I think everybody's just like, I'm recording this.
Yeah, they just say recording.
Yeah, but TiVo used to be at one point like
this. So tape is to record if you're not from the late 1900s. So
Which is it's funny you say that. Me and Ye always be like, yeah, I'm from, like, because when you're looking at the grand scheme of things, I'll be like, I'm from a different time. It's just
from before the turn of the century.
Yeah, it's a different time, which is obviously a different time, as we'll talk about tonight.
Yeah, that's going to be relevant. So anyway, we understand that. So, and we'll probably get breaking news through later in the show, as Brian likes to do. So, but this is a week of way too much news. We started even before we started writing the show this week saying, oh my God, how are we going to fit all of this in? Because this has been like, it was a news heavy weekend.
Yeah.
You know, which usually that's not how things go. Usually things are kind of slow through the weekend and then they pick up. But
this, I mean, with this administration, they drop large shit usually on Fridays.
Yeah, they try the Friday news dump, but
on everything. It's like not like
everything.
It's like on everything. So you have these weekends, which I also wonder if that's a setup to get the people on TV on Sunday, and like to have that. I mean, it's probably that because it's clear this administration, the most important thing is how you perform on TV.
That's right.
So,
yeah, and it's also sort of like par for the course that if you are on a Adderall and cocaine bender, there's no such thing as a weekend. Like, you just go until the drugs run out, and then you become sec def. You know, so it's
like they're planning chaos and pandemonium through the weekend. They don't take a day off.
They don't take days off. They don't have any
Susan
regard.
Wild and friggin' Stephen Miller aren't taking the week. No, they're using the weekend to plan more devastation.
Yes. They are always on. They are never off. If Stephen Miller took a vacation, it would be to go with Kristi Noem shooting puppies, you know, and I don't know what they would do.
Yo, he's a weasel, man.
He's
okay. Like, that's the nicest way I can.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever called Stephen Miller as a weasel.
I'm like, because he's hell bent on like that's one person that does have like ideology, I think, in the administration. Like, but it's just very odd. It's like, what? Like, again, I tell you, it's like between him and then like Herschel Walker, and it's. I told you the yarmulkes and koofies.
Stephen Miller would take himself to the camps. Like, he is. I don't understand him.
It's like, because he's hell bent on like this new set of folks that have been installed. Like, it's rather like. Watching it, I'm like, oh, they definitely learned from the first time.
Yeah,
like it's clear. Like, it's clear. It's like, oh, they're going about this very surgical. It's still foolish in like a carnival, no matter what. It's still a carnival, but it's like there's actually a line to get in now to the carnival. The rides kind of work. Like
it went from being a mad rush to the rides to now being like some sort of queue. But it's still it's a chaos carnival is what it is.
It's
but they
still
I liken it to the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park, right?
Yes,
like they kept touching the wire till they could figure out where they could get out, and so they spent the first 4 years just like getting zapped every time they touched the thing, and now they've learned there's like, oh, we have to take everything to this one judge in North Texas, and then we can get away with it. Although we may find out after what we heard today about these national injunctions and things like it, that cuts
Supreme
a lot
Court
of
today was like, hey, this doesn't. I don't know. The Supreme Court. There's arguments today around. I guess it isn't even necessarily yet the birthright.
Yeah, it wasn't really about the merits, although
it's more like, can one court dictate? Which
the merits of the case itself kind of like snuck in there here and there, especially in terms of like the practicality arguments of like how exactly would this happen if you were to get what you want, which is not to have a national injunction, but to have, some sort of jurisdictional injunction or district injunction. And so like Beer Can Brett was kind of poking at that. And Coney Barrett was kind of like, she was really incredulous at one point. She was like, you're telling me you're not going to respect the decision of a circuit court or a district court? And the Solicitor General, Sauer, was like, yeah, if we feel like it or not. And she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you right. Did I? And he goes, yeah, you did. And so I don't know. I mean, the fact that Nina Totenberg was like, we have no idea where this is going after listening to the hearing tells you a lot. That if she doesn't know, it's tough to read. But anyway, that is for a whole nother week, because like we said, this is a very busy news week.
So that's the middle of the summer show.
Yeah, that's the June show. So we have too much to cover. We will, of course, we'll have headlines. We'll cover the world on the domestic front, and especially Bill Belichick's girlfriend, which Brian loves to cover. Also, this week,
what?
Yeah, well, cover her in what?
Sorry, all right, let's do it.
She lost to Miss Bangor.
Oh no!
Yeah. Okay, you ready for this?
Yes.
Also, this week, Trump goes on a world tour with Muhammad the Man.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good, right?
All his man's Muhammad. Like, it's a bunch. It doesn't matter. He's well on the top. I can't wait to talk about that, because I find that to be it's very funny on so many levels.
Yes.
It's like it's because it's like a shit. It's like he shits in a lot of people's faces by moving this way. Like,
yeah, but he's oddly moving the ball down the field in some ways.
Because again, it's just
because he has no regard for how anything works.
Exactly.
It's
things are like, moved. People are forced. It's like you're playing. He makes a random chess move, and you're just like, but that's not allowed. He's like, of course it is. And you're like, but then you respond to the chess move. You're like,
it's like he moves his rook diagonally, and you go, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he goes, "That's where it is. React." And then you're like, "Okay, guy, I guess we're doing that now."
He made a lot of deals, man.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
There's a lot of deals he made. This is insane. This is so all
right. So then we're gonna get to Trump voters who got exactly what they voted for. No. Marge forgets how videos work. It's gonna be a wild ride. We just gotta plunge into this. Like we will keep sidetracking ourselves if we even like address any of it. So there's no other way to do this but to just plow ahead.
Some of this doesn't make any sense.
None of it makes any sense. I wrote it and it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. All
right. So do you have a word?
Yeah, I got a word. I got one here, obviously.
Okay. I've got a word. All right, so sit back, grab some
planes.
It's E. coli time. You're listening to the best show, the only show, Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
No break. Brian doesn't like us to go to break.
All right.
We missed it. Brian was out. Welcome back to
Back to
ChipChat
back.
Beltway Radio and Beyond. That was a fantastic break. Thank you for everybody who went and took that.
We're on a break. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all
I was getting
right.
Slayer news, so I'm sorry.
Of course. We're
Go
powering through. You want to just power through?
Let's power through it. Like you
Yeah.
never have. We hit the tagline and everything. Okay. That's fine. Let's just do some headlines.
Talking about planes.
Yeah. So there's one of these that specifically has to be for you, Tez, just because of the way it lines up.
All right.
Which is the one that's about the Pope. But everything else, we can just go onesie twosie. So you wanna go ahead with the first one?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, again, because we're talking about planes. A
Right.
plane loaded with refugees from South Africa arrived this week, prompting fury in Alabama until they learned the refugees are white.
That's right. The Afrikaner refugees were brought to the United States, presumably so Elon could have something that he is desperately looking for: friends.
I can't wait till ICE snatches one of them up.
Right. Don't worry. For some reason I don't think they will.
Well, that's true.
Sounds about white.
Of course.
All right. You want the next one there?
Oh yeah, I'll take the next one. Just continuing on the same road. The Afrikaner refugees were brought to the U.S. Presumably so. Elon could have something he's my fault.
You did that one.
Sorry, I'm doing bad radio tonight. India and Pakistan briefly stopped shooting at each other after J.D. Vance spent a long night working the phones and, quote, sleeping on the couch.
That's right.
It's so hilarious. I thought you would just responded to what I said the first time. I thought it was just like, it was very fluid. That's it. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
The new Pope gave an address to a conference of journalists, and he told them to keep reporting the truth. He then refused to take any questions about clergy sex abuse and walked away.
Okay, yeah, that's
true.
That's true. It's not funny. China and the U.S. agreed to a pause in the tariff war, dropping the extra tax U.S. consumers have to pay from 145% to only 30%, or as Trump puts it, quote, $37.
That's right. All right, Sean Diddy Combs began his trial this week in a New York courthouse, and if you think you've heard that story before, it's because it was ripped off from one about Biggie.
Oh, God. Wow. Combs is charged with racketeering, but that's not really fair because it's nearly impossible to hold a racket covered in baby oil.
It's true. The evidence locker in the Combs trial is huge and requires anti-slip boots to enter.
Enter what? Just keep going. These kids were at the trial, presumably to find out how they were conceived. Oh, no.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. Actually, if you've read any of that, I would encourage you not to.
No.
It is not pleasant.
I believe everything that happened to these people. I don't need to read it. It's okay. I will it's not my job to be the jury in the trial. They'll do that.
The jurors had to watch some of the videos.
Yeah. No.
I'm like, yo, they better get more than their $15.
Here's the thing. You picked me to be on that jury because don't want to really even go and I'm always usually about getting on a jury, which I haven't had the pleasure.
Right. I wanted to. Yeah,
I've never succeeded on it. But that one, I am coming in there talking about bad. Right. Yeah, you're gonna make. They're like, yeah, we obviously cannot be on the trial because there's no way in hell I want to hear about him. No, it's anyways. It's that shit is clear. That is what he did is clear.
Yes,
and the baby oil. Yeah.
All right. This one's a video one and audio if you're listening in. Brian, hit the tape.
Here, let's see. More tape reference.
Whatever. Look at the color of this guy.
Look at this screenshot right here.
A friend of mine who's.
Oh, we're buffering.
Sorry.
He looks like he's buffering even when he's alive. Like, Donald Trump looks like a AOL video of Donald Trump.
Brilliant businessman, seriously overweight.
I mean, we got the part we needed.
And he takes the fat shot.
He takes the fat shot.
And he called me up and he said,
"This ain't
all right,
real.
This is terrible.
Hold on. This is not real. This has got to be generated. This did not.
No, it's very real.
I see it says live in Washington D.C., but this can't be. I missed this one.
And he calls me. He used to call.
Okay.
Very sick.
I think we can
skip it. Forget it. Trump tells this story about Elon who takes the fat shot, and
how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question?
I kind of like him just breaking in.
And I
kind of prefer that. All right. If we can have that on a loop of just him breaking in every random.
He goes.
It's just like we're talking. He takes the fat shot.
He calls me. He goes, President. He used to call me Donald. He calls me President now. President. I'm in London. I got my fat shot. It's $88. When I'm in New York, it's $1,300. And he said, I'm taking the fat shot. And I said, it's not working. He fit that in there somehow. He like had this aside.
You know what's it frustrates me so bad. And I know we're going to get to this in a certain part of it, but that unfortunately, he is an effective communicator to a swath of people. It's like, and I'm like, wait, hold on. Is anybody else listening to what I'm listening to? And it's clearly not. It's clearly not. Because it's literally, he's hitting these notes, like it's these certain notes, which it is.
It doesn't.
Got it from WWE wrestling school. Come on.
It is that. No, it is that. And that's what I say when I say effective communication, because when I look at the last administration, it's there. That is where the fault is. It wasn't being able to effectively communicate things that are going on. And I can't, unfortunately, I put blame where the hell it is on that. And there was effective communicator. I mean, whatever people could say about, like, she should have obviously been put forward a lot earlier on there. Right. And that's clear what we should have done at this point. So clear, but it's like, this is like some straight wrestling TV shit that a lot of people are able to connect with. Eli got the fat shot. It's just, it's very simple.
It's not just that. It's that liberals and the like intelligentsia that analyzes the way Trump talks, they're always getting this wrong. That they're saying it's word salad, that it's a jumble, and all of this. Trump says it's the weave. It's not the weave. He's not like a genius that he's figuring out how to tie these strings together. It's just that he speaks and takes his own tangents and is able to come back to where he was. I talk like that. I understand that.
Exactly, right? You can easily you're like, oh, I get exactly what's happening here.
The writers at the Times or the Post or whatever, they're like, well, he's clearly got dementia. And it's like, no, he just always talks like I talk like that. I can follow this. I don't know why everybody says it's so hard to follow him. I can follow him.
A lot of people following it.
Dangerous person. The things he's saying are harmful, but he is not incoherent or incomprehensible. He is very, very clearly comprehensible. People understand him. I understand.
Yes, that is and that is where this becomes.
It's weird, and it's it doesn't fit the mold of like presidential because he does take these sidetracks.
And the mold is broken, right? It is done, right? In the United States of America, there will be a before, right, and then an after, like, because whether you say like whether it's the Republican Party, whether it's what the presidency even looks like, him having 2 terms has now completely changed this, because there's a playbook now, there's precedent that is now here. All right, obviously talking about going to a tangent, that was one, but it's when I watch that and just listen to it's like, oh, he's hitting the notes for people, and those notes are very strong. It's like a Pavlovian friggin'
it's Bill Clinton all over again, right? Bill Clinton used to do this all the time. He would start saying, he would get onto the message, and then he would take a journey, and he would always land back where he was and talk about hitting notes. I mean, Clinton knew exactly how to pluck each string as he went along through the story, and it would always work. And everybody listening would hear exactly what they needed to hear to then follow him to where he was going.
It's effective communication. This is what it is. It is effective communication that is happening right now. It's just what they're communicating is hellfire and brimstone.
Yes.
So, that's the problem with all this. But I can't sit back and look at it and be like, oh, like, this is insane. Oh no, I see exactly what's going on. Now I ask, where's our effective communicator? Where?
Right here.
Oh God, there's no God.
Let me message.
Oh, thank you. This is
breaking news. Please tell me something good, Brian.
Unfortunately, no. The Washington Capitals are now officially out. So they lost 3-1.
3-1?
Yeah.
It was 1-1. What happened?
Yeah, what happened?
A goal and then an empty netter. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
That kind of happens.
You gotta go for it at the end.
No, I understand.
Yeah. So,
all right. Well,
but a great 50th season for the Caps. But I think once again, the NHL will never have its number 1 seeds in the Stanley Cups. So
curse to the President's Trophy.
Curse to the President's Trophy.
Well, on the plus side, I get to trim this thing down, so that'll
there
feel
you
good.
go. Oh, that's sad news. Anyway,
all right, let's get back to this Fakakta show.
Yeah, where were we?
On his Middle East trip.
On his Middle East trip, yes. While his trip to the Middle East, Trump met with the new president of Syria, or maybe it was some random Arab guy. Trump doesn't know the difference.
That's true. Also on his trip, the Qataris gave Trump a luxury jumbo jet. When he flies on it, the code name will be Corruption 1.
It's got to be corruption, but the number, it's so good. It's got to be corruption, but the number 1.
No,
yes.
WON. Corruption
I know.
1.
Yes. But I'm telling you, you put a number on it. With a nigga corruption, number 1. Just one.
People have been, the internet has been like, repainted. Like a 747 says like Qatar's bitch or whatever,
Yo, I think this is how they got Pete Rose news. I think the Qataris had something to do with that too.
I believe they did. They're punching well above their weight.
It's insane right now, yo. Oh my God, they went from World Cups to the plane in question is a Boeing 747, so maybe Trump will be standing by the door when never mind.
A researcher with not enough to do noticed this week that names with the word oak in them, like Oakley and Oakland, are trending in Republican states because Republican dads like to associate their daughters with hardwood.
That is just, we're going to move straight on to this. And maybe all of these names are just to help them remember to rake the forest. Calm down, Matt Gaetz. We said rake.
There you go.
Jesus.
Lawmakers in Texas proposed a bill to ban abortion medication and also included in the bill a provision fining any state judge who hears a challenge to that law $100,000. It's the most brazen attempt at invincibility since Mario ate the star off the Texas flag.
Oh, God.
All right, this one's yours.
Maybe the smoke should have stayed black.
Yep. Go ahead.
Pope Leo turns out to be a little more infuriating to the MAGA faithful than previously stated. It turns out his ancestry includes some color. think through the New Orleans route, I believe.
That's right.
Creole. So not only is he the first American pope, but he's also the first black pope. Well, maybe not fully black, but the one drop rule still counts. We're claiming Leo.
That's right.
We don't got to draft him. He's here.
Yeah, you already got it. You snuck him in.
Yeah.
Obviously through the other door, right? Because the white popes go through the one door in the. Never mind. All right. Joe Biden's staff did things to hide his declining health and condition while he was in the White House and in his run for a second term, according to a new book by Jake Tapper and some other person, which we didn't bother to learn. We'll definitely make Tez read this book and tell us all about it as soon as anybody cares.
I care on this one. I find I still, there wasn't a time to talk about it because we had more important things to do. Try to get Kamala Harris fucking put in the goddamn White House. We tried that, but there's a bigger question to be asked. Like, why the hell do we have to run him one more time? It's a clear question that needs to be asked on there because it's obvious at the end.
It's ego. What else could it possibly be? The thing that makes you want to be president is that you think you're the one that can do it. And you don't want to give that. Nobody gives that up. Nobody gives it up willingly.
No one does give it up willingly, but this should but then this is the bigger issue with because the party should be bigger than one man.
But that's not how it's organized.
It should.
Or just make me president. It'll be fine.
Oh God. Anyway, moving along.
You would be by default vice president, by the way. You didn't have a choice in that one.
See, look at that. No choices.
If I'm going, you're coming with me.
Yeah, that should be fun.
This is a 2-person operation. Brian's got to be there too. They just won't ever see him. Go ahead.
What is Brian? Brian, chief of staff.
Yes.
All right. We'll go ahead and continue on this lovely lazy river. Did anybody not think the president's lives are carefully manicured and presented to the public to show them in their best possible light? Hell, Obama can't even shoot a jumper, let alone make them all the time. But did you ever see that? Now, think about how this is the best version of Trump we're seeing all the time.
The best, only the best.
Only the best. This is the manicured, crafted image that the best people can produce. Imagine if they weren't there. Just a fat glob of orange goo with bad comb over, rage tweeting on his toilet while mainlining ketchup with Fox News or maligning ketchup with Fox News blaring in the background. Like your uncle.
Yes. That's, yeah. RFK Jr. told a congressional hearing that nobody should take medical advice from him.
Crazy
but
town.
His brain testified otherwise.
Crazy town. With that.
And this one's also for you. I was thinking about you when I wrote it.
The markets continue their instability this week, but Trump reassured everyone that he's just using the Dow to help plan his new Gaza roller coaster.
It's gonna go up, 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 and then woo!
Maybe just like in like what are these places like in Santa Monica Pier or something like that,
right? Yeah, why not?
French Riviera.
Something Riviera, I think he called it. Yeah. Okay.
It'll be occupied soon. Or now. It's insane. Anyways, what the fuck's going on? Maybe this time we need a break.
Yeah, we're going to try to hit the break. Now, when we're going to do this, we're going to talk about that we're going to a break several times to get Brian ready for when we're going to go to this break. So then we're going to take a break. And then when we come back from the break. We're going to from the break, we're going to come back with the rundown. All right, we're going to take said break. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Break.
I feel like slapping a nigga today. Oh, oh, oh. I feel like slapping a nigga today. Oh, oh, oh. I feel like slapping a nigga today. Oh, oh, oh. motherfuckers on the road. Where the hell they learn to drive? Jive turkeys at my job, about to get a cool, cold, mean five. Should've took the day off. Might slap my boss. My own damn kids pissing me off. As if I hadn't had enough. Chipotle, fuck my goddamn order up. I'm fed up, I'm fed up, I'm fed up. I feel like slapping a nigga today. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I feel like slapping a nigga today. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I feel like slapping a nigga today. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Bartender, don't you see me waving you down? This guy came after me, I was here first, but you serving him rounds. No, I bought the Uber here, my friends expecting me to buy it back. Tomorrow morning, I better get a cash app, or every last one of you motherfuckers getting slapped. Bet that. Whoa, I feel like slapping a nigga today. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I feel like slapping a nigga today. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I feel like slapping a nigga today. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Woke up this morning with these thoughts in my head. The world would be better off if I just stayed my ass in bed. Whoa, I feel like slapping a nigga today. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I feel like slapping a nigga today. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I feel like slapping a nigga today. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm Chip. This is
You
Ted.
didn't say the host. You tried to distance yourself from. Hold on. Okay.
Oh,
All
anyway,
right. There's 1,000 things I have. Like, usually I get up during the break and I go get a drink. As soon as this turned on, I was glued to my seat, and I almost wish that we had a guest on to come back.
Be horrified by that.
Come back from this to just see. That would have been Brian. First of all, yo, AI must be stopped, and I'm for it. I'm like for it, but I'm like, when I get
That might
back,
not have been AI.
oh, wait, there has to be, because that
To be fully honest with you, yes, it's fully AI.
yes, of course.
AI videos and AI song. Everything is
Yo,
AI.
yeah, it just yo. And look,
But somebody had to ask the AI to do
yes,
that.
yes.
Somebody was like, write me a song with this lyric.
The premise, though, I'm not gonna sit here and lie about the premise and be like, well, I can see that.
See, you're cold. You see, this is why I like playing these things cold. Because your reactions are classic, especially Q-Tez. It's just perfect. Absolutely perfect.
And I can't. That might be the new one I'm humming around, and I can't really. Yeah,
So I have a lot of feelings about. First of all, that opening lyric. I think we need a warning, Brian, before you do something like that.
Fair,
Because out of context,
only puts one person in a weird situation.
well, and then
Yes.
secondly, AI, if you're listening,
Oh, it's always listening.
that R was a little more pronounced than I wanted it to be.
Fair observation. But remember who builds this stuff.
However, right, yeah, right. However, to put it, ready for this? The song kind of slaps.
A little bit. Ding, ding. And then they go, who?
And the video is very cool. It's got like the anime, it's got that retro feel.
That style is called something. I don't know the name of it. Brian, do you know the name of what that there's a
like
style?
lo-fi anime?
Something like that. Yeah, there's like a
Somewhere
style.
around that. Based off of the this new AI stuff. Yeah, so it's I know it has that animated look. So
This is I've kind of never been more excited to talk about hostage.
All right. Now we come to the part of the show that's called the Rundown. This is where I tell you about some stuff that's going on in the news. If we were professionals, it would sound a little something like this.
I'm gonna slap
Beltway Radio and beyond in Washington, D.C. I'm Emmy-nominated TV newsman and just bona fide sexual beast, J. Scott Smith. And this is the part of the show where I tell some stuff about maybe not me, but somebody else is going to tell some stuff about what's happening in the news. So what's going on in the news, fellas?
Thanks, Jay. Check him out on Channel 4 in Detroit.
Great stuff he's doing up there so far. From what
don't slap anybody.
Not today. Oh
my God. All right. Dateline, Tel Aviv. So Hamas released a hostage, an American-born U.S.-Israeli dual national named Eden Alexander, and he was the last American citizen being held by Hamas. And they released him to the International Red Cross at a very low-key handoff. They didn't make him parade around or like wear a badge with his name on it or whatever it is that they did to the other people. But the interesting thing about this, apart from it's very good that he's freed, is how this came about, which is how.
This came about by Donald Trump doing a direct deal with Hamas, correct?
That is correct. So
back channel deal, yeah.
It wasn't even back channel.
I guess that's why it wasn't really. It was a straight deal, right? Yeah, sure. I feel confident when I said the first time. Yes,
they called the Qataris. They're like, "Do you have Hamas's number?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's right here." So they give them the number, and the American State Department or whoever it is, Witkoff maybe, just straight up cold calls Hamas and it's like, "Hey, this is America. Can you give us our guy back?" And they're like, "Sorry, we've never spoken to you." And Witkoff was like, "Well, you're talking to us now. Do you want to give us our guy?" And they were like, "What's in it for us?" And the Americans were like, a chance to embarrass Netanyahu for his inability to do anything remotely like this. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we hate that guy too." Deal.
You hate him? And they're like,
right.
Okay, whatever. If you want to do this, I feel like something.
So, like, they totally short-circuited Bibi. He had absolutely nothing to do with this. Already, the Israeli population is furious with him for not getting the hostages out any faster. And now it's like he got beat to the punch, and he looks even weaker. And so he responded by bombing the fuck out of Gaza even more.
It was a wild response. Yeah.
They spent like the whole last 6 days just airstriking the shit out of that place. It's already totally decimated, killed hundreds and hundreds more people, bunches of children, and they still won't let in any aid. The place is collapsing. They've increased the what they're calling buffer zones, but it is actually annexing of territory. They're squeezing the population into a tinier and tinier spot, and they're bombing that population in that tiny spot. There is absolutely nothing defensible about what the Israelis are doing. And the American establishment just like walked right past that, and they're like, "Give us our guy." And Hamas is like, "Yep, here you go." I'm not sure what they gave him. I mean, they must have given him a bunch of money, right? Like, what else could it be?
I was going to say the money. I feel like the money violates certain sanctions and certain things, but what does that matter at this point? I mean, number one, it's clear that Israel is going to occupy the
Yeah.
Gaza Strip again. And it's clear that to do that, they're planning to raise that thing to the ground. People be damned, but it's always been people be damned, right? I don't think it's ever been a time where it's like, oh, okay, we're going to try to.
Yeah, but the settlements previously were sort of like, specifically defined and like meant to be the sectioned off areas of Gaza, like surrounded by the pressurized prison that was the Palestinian part of Gaza. They're dispensing with that altogether. They're just, as you mentioned, raising it to the ground, flat sheet of dirt, and then they'll build the Trump Plaza or whatever on there, and then and the Palestinian people who already live there will not. And I don't mean they won't live there.
It's not even that they won't move; they'll probably be dead.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. When I say that the Palestinian people who live there will not, it's not that they will be moved. They won't live there. They will be dead. They are just murdering wholesale hundreds of thousands of people at this point. I mean, I don't know what else you can call it. If you're not bombing them to death, you're starving them to death. This is genocide. And for what, I'm not totally sure, because the piece of land itself isn't particularly great for anything. And now it's even worse because now it's contaminated with all of these, munitions all over the damn place. And God knows what you've done to the, ground vis-a-vis all the people who are dead in the ground there. I mean, I don't know why you do this.
Yeah. I think still the thing is the resolve of people wanting to be on where they're from, their land. You're not going to get that out of anybody, right?
No.
And I think, right, everybody in that region should almost have like that type of thing. Everyone has that feeling around that. It's their land. That's where they're from, right? It's, for centuries, people have been there, right? That's not going to change. You can raise it to the ground, but people are still going to there's going to be a group of people that end up staying there somehow, some way, unless you go a full-on type of I don't know, lack of better word, extermination type thing.
Well, I think that's where they're going with it.
Yeah.
I think I said this the last time, that the idea here, the Israelis are going to squeeze all the people of the Gaza Strip against the Egyptian border and dare the Egyptians to keep it closed. And then once they've got them penned in even tighter, they're just going to keep killing them until somebody takes them out. Then they'll close off the fence and it'll be over. How they operate in the rest of the world after that, especially if they're out here trying to maybe cut a deal with the Syrians, if they're out here trying to normalize relations with the Saudis.
That's the question. There's the question of, right, because does the rest of the Arab world again turn their back on? I assume they're the Palestinian brothers and sisters. I don't know. Do they still do that? Because right, again, they're the individuals I look at. Obviously, there's the direct people, right? Like Bibi obviously being one, Donald Trump, the Americans there. But I then start to look at MBS, right? I look at the royal Qatari family. Those are the other individuals. I look at the UAE. I have a lot of questions about you deciding to then make these deals. Is it no longer is the two-state solution no longer a part of these deals? And I think it's not, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know that. I mean, to your first question of would they, you put it rightly, continue to turn their back on their Palestinian brothers. I think the answer is probably yes. If there's money to be made, they'll look past it. But it's not just the Arabs you got to watch. I mean, the Turks are not super comfortable with all of this. And, I wonder if a continued full-scale genocide of Gaza fundamentally breaks the relationship between American Jews and Israel as a country, that people like me might kind of not want to be part of that anymore, and the political cover that comes with the Americans always coming to the rescue to defend Israel or to back them up in the UN or stuff could kind of erode a bit. If the American Jewish population loses their appetite to support an Israeli government, I don't mean the people, but the government,
right.
It gets hard. It gets really hard to continue to operate like this.
Yeah, I don't even. I literally lost for words in the sense of like, what do you end up doing in that situation when it's clear as day what is happening, and like it's literally like the full definition of like the rock and a hard place. But at a certain point, people will look at that and be like, I don't know. How do you continue on? Because it's so brazen, right? It's not even like, I mean, I've been watching this for a long time, like my whole life, right? I've never seen, right, similar. I've never seen it at where even the initial like rules that were set up, right, with America and it being the protector, right? For one reason, because that it's square in the middle of a crazy zone in the world, right? That it's very strategic. But like even those rules, when the American president goes and makes a direct deal with Hamas, it's like, oh, clearly I don't even understand this anymore on like how like they've ripped up all the rules of this. So there are no rules. So like, and all of this stuff changes in every 24 hours. So it's like I can't even predict things that I think in the past you like, oh, a peace deal is going to happen. And then, and it'll be like not relatively peace because it's not going to be peaceful to Palestinians, but it'll be like light occupation. And then we'll do it again in 10 years. It's like, I don't really know if that's going to be what we see.
Yeah, the mold's been broken here.
Yeah.
And part of that has to do with Trump's disregard for the norms, where like the thing that America ultimately withholds is recognition. So, we don't talk to terrorists. We don't talk to the North Koreans. He doesn't care about that. He'll talk to anybody, especially because he's as corrupt as you could possibly be. If he thinks that there's an opportunity for him to make a dollar, he's going to do it. So I think that the Gulf Arabs very fundamentally understand that. And I think by extension, Hamas understands that because they are funded by those same Gulf Arabs. But, the Israeli, to be Jewish in America has always kind of come with it that like when the Israelis do something that's uncomfortable for me, you have to say like, I kind of wish they wouldn't do that. But like in the end, I'm able to look past it because I want this thing called the state of Israel to be here for me.
It's like early in the NFL when there'd be black quarterbacks that really weren't that good. Like, unfortunately, I'm going to rock with the black, even though I'm not going to say anything bad about them, even though, it's like, that's not really, that's not what we should be cheering on because that's not good.
It's not the excellence that you're hoping for. Yeah.
It's obviously a trivial way to put that there, but I'm saying it's like that I'm not going to necessarily speak negatively on this because again, I want the idea of that to be again, to be around. Like
So I would always watch it about how critical I was about Israel, and because ultimately I wanted it to exist in case I needed to run there from something bad, and now I do need to run someplace from something bad, and Israel is so far off the table, it's not even part of the conversation because I don't want to be any part of that. And it will break. My generation, we are the children of the people who built that country. And, or the grandchildren of, I should say. So it was my grandfather's generation. It was his brother who went there. He moved there in 1953 to build that country. And it was those folks who kept going back and forth, hiding salamis in their coats to bring them to Israel so that the people there could get food. It was that. And we had the JNF boxes at Hebrew school collecting money to plant trees, and it was a whole thing. And we were very deeply raised with the aftermath of the 6-Day War, and that this is our territory as Jews, and that it was all, given to us, and that we took it after being attacked. And there was this whole glorious story that went along with it. And that is completely untellable now. That story is not something I can tell. I can't repeat that. It's not real. And now we are, as the descendants of that, Jewish folks perpetrating on other people something that's recognizable, but not in a good way. And I can't.
That's different.
Can't countenance it. I just can't. I can't have any piece of it.
Yeah,
and that's not good. That may end up being the thing.
That's heavy shit to walk around with, right? That's heavy shit to walk around with.
It's heavy to walk around with, but it's even heavier to like read and find out that you're tied to it in so many ways. It's really troubling. I am very concerned that it breaks, because the fundamental support, like Israel would never have dreamed of committing the various types of occupations and behaviors that they have committed before this war, right, in the West Bank over the last 40 years, if they didn't think that they were going to be protected by the Americans from another 1967 style attack. In 67, go ahead.
But also, isn't it what fuels it as well? Is like, it's clear that from what I've read, and again, I can't speak because I'm not Jewish, right? But from everything I've read, it's also clear that what happened in the war, everybody's like, that shit's not happening again. We're not we're not ever going, and like, we'll fucking bomb anybody. Like, and it's almost kind of like it's like, oh, there were Jewish folks that were critical that, oh, no one stood up and fought for themselves during that time, right? Or it was like more of a pacifist people. And it feels like after the war, and I can't speak to this, right? I have to logistic, but it feels after the war, it's like, oh no, never again. Like, we're never, and we're situated here in the middle of a lot of folks who don't want us here, but it doesn't matter. We have the backing in the United States, and prior to that, the backing to Britain. And it's like, we're gonna go fight. Like, we'll go fight this shit out, right? And like, I wonder if for over time, you just have that. Remember, it's like, oh, I'm going to fight this. Where to me, it's clear. It's like, do y'all really got? I don't think anybody's coming to take that shit, right? No, like, y'all are the dominant power. Like, Israel is the dominant power, right?
But the reason that's the thing. The reason that Israel is the dominant power in that place is because of the United States.
Yeah, they can fuck Iran. All those countries there have no match for what is. There's no match for them. And yeah, even with the United States, obviously, but I think without the United States,
they aren't really ever without, right? Because so much of their hardware, so much of their intelligence, so much of everything that they do is tied to the American military and the weapon systems that the Americans have given them, even though the Israelis are very adept at building their own. In 67, Israel is aware of this impending attack by the entire Arab world all at once. And they've got sophisticated aircraft from the Russians, and the Israelis have no American hardware at all. They've got crappy French surplus stuff and their wits. And because they see the threat coming, and because, like you said, they've adopted this attitude of, we're not going to let it happen again, they're willing to make a preemptive strike. And they get the planes in the air first, and they attack the Egyptians and the Syrian air forces on the ground and obliterate them before they can launch everything, which they then do and try to make the attack. The Israelis blitz across the Sinai and get to the Suez and basically tell the Egyptians, go ahead and make a move. And they do the same thing in the Golan. They do the same thing across the Jordan, or across the 67 line, up to the Jordan River, and threaten to go into Jordan, all the way across the river, and say, all right, y'all really want to do this? And it works. And the Arabs back down because they don't have the wherewithal to fight this. And that is the last time the Israelis really had to do anything without the Americans helping them. After that, the Americans are like, okay, these guys are legit. They are an opportunity for us to have this strategic position in this place that is, right in Russia's sphere. Right. And the Americans begin flooding the Israelis with support. And a lot of that comes from American Jews who saw that 67 Six-Day War and said, okay, we are no longer, this meek, easily rousted, pogromed Holocaust victim. We are now a legitimate established power. And the American Jewish community floods support to Israel in terms of money, in terms of moving there, in terms of moving people there, and building up ties and all of that stuff. And it gets very, very strong. And the Israelis then, I don't know exactly what trips this, but at some point, like especially in the mid 80s with like Reagan and Bush, they kind of like get pretty bold about this. They won in 48. They won in 67. They won in 73. And they're like, now we get to be the aggressor. Now we get to take things. Now
some of these administrations couldn't even stop any of this, right?
Yeah. Well, they didn't want to stop it.
Right.
They were fine with it.
George H.W. Bush's administration, like, even to go in and be like, hey, we think you should kind of chill out on certain things there. They're like, all right, what, like, you're not going to change the posture of what.
Yeah, but they didn't do that. It wasn't until Clinton that anybody told the Israelis, maybe you ought to give up some of this stuff that you took in 67. Like Carter tried. Carter got them to give the Sinai back to the Egyptians in return for recognition and peace. And Nasser signed the deal, and the Israelis and the Egyptians were technically, recognized in that peace ever since. But that turning, maybe that's the turning point, but the Israelis basically began a campaign of like taking shit since that point, and knowing that they had the backing of the Americans. Now we're at a place where it gets very difficult for the United States as a group, as a pluralistic country made of many people, and especially for the Jews in this country, for all of us who identify with the struggle of those who have been oppressed, to continue to support somebody who looks very much like the people who oppressed us. And if that support evaporates, could the Israelis continue to live in such a hostile environment without, if for, like I said, it's a long shot, but if the Americans say stopped supporting the F-16s that make up the backbone of the Israeli Air Force, what would happen? Would they still be this?
It's deal with China, right? China steps into this role, right? And I mean,
if the Arabs don't make a deal with China first, I mean,
yeah. But I think China's going to make deals with everybody.
Right? China might be willing to sell things to everybody and just let them all fight it out. They don't care.
Yeah, this is that, and this is the whole point of like, well, what I thought when you say the norms are completely gone. So I thought that was the whole idea of like America, right? Is that you are the button, right? Not to say that I agree with the way it moves, but it's like, oh, we'll dictate the terms. No longer does it feel like America dictates the terms. We dictate the terms, but we're choosing to go a different route. Like,
well, and the terms seem unmoored. It was an American hegemony that like maintained the rules of the road, even if those rules weren't great, and it was stable. And you were to play within those rules, or you basically found yourself in a totally incompatible spot. And now, with the Trump administration, there are no rules, and they just do anything that they want, and they shift around like on a given basis, which is how we get to some of these crazy things. then on the other hand, like the actual norms of diplomacy and governance and stuff is how we get to like this next story, which is that the PKK is laying down their arms.
I missed this one. Didn't even see this.
This is a thing that I didn't think I would see ever in my entire life.
Didn't see this.
And yeah, it kind of was not on the radar because of the, just fire hose of other crazy shit that was going on. But this is a huge deal. Turkey and the Kurds have been at war with each other basically since the modern state of Turkey arose out of the Ottoman Empire. And the numbers of people dead in this conflict is staggering. It's in the hundreds of thousands if you start really counting it up. And the Kurds have been fighting for an autonomous country, essentially, in the region that is what we would call Kurdistan, northern Iraq, northern Syria, and eastern and southern Turkey, or Turkey as they like to be called now. Sorry. And basically, they kind of achieved it. Like they got what they needed. They've got this independent state with a stable government and an airport and oil money in northern Iraq. They've got the YPG working with the Americans in Syria. Syria now with Assad gone could, and this is a huge if, but Syria has an opportunity here to become a major leader in this region by becoming the true pluralistic society that their new leadership is really talking about. And if they do that, right, but if they do that, they vault ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
In a way where, the business money comes flying in and just the ability to like operate as a world power goes.
And you think about that, like, I mean, there's a lot of history in that region, but Syria specifically, I feel like it's like a cultural thing of like,
it is the cultural center of Mesopotamia. Yeah.
Right, exactly. You could go in, like, if you really like want to create that society, you could like come up with and tell the story of that area, which people from around the world, if people go there to be able to, that there's a lot that happens.
Right. So they have this huge opportunity. And in that case, right, the Kurds might be able to operate within that or as part of that in a pluralistic society. But their leadership here in Turkey basically said, we can resolve the rest of our stuff through the democratic process. The PKK, which is banned as a terrorist group in Turkey, the EU, and the US, has, quote, this is what they said, they completed a historical mission and it would end the method of armed struggle. From now on, the Kurdish issue, quote, can be resolved through democratic politics, the group said in a statement. That's huge. It's huge. It's like the Good Friday Accords or something like that.
Right.
This is a 1,000-year struggle. And we're lucky enough that we're living in a time that we get to see it happen. Now, will it stick? How many people have to be convinced? Will the YPG go along with the greater, governance of the PKK? That's not entirely clear. The Americans are allied with the YPG in Syria, helping initially to tamp down ISIS.
But now we're aligned with Syria, right? In the sense, maybe where does Russia play into Syria's plans at this point?
Right. Russia was allied with old Syria. They're not really sure they can trust new Syria. This is a really like fluxy time. And what got me thinking about why we had like the craziest news week to talk about when we were talking about that earlier in the week is that like in a time where everything is falling in different directions, I don't want to say apart, but in different directions, I don't feel confident that we have the steady hand at state or in the White House that has a deep enough understanding of these kinds of circumstances to actually shepherd us and the rest of the world safely through this very fraught time.
But that's not how this is done anymore, right? It's not the State Department making these things. There's one person now who does this, and he dictates all this. Like, again, he dictates it. Like, it's what he's going to do, and he'll have his advisors around him, right? But there's no more like this. The head of the Department of State has 5 jobs.
Yeah. It's
What are you talking about? There's nobody. All the people who could do this are fired.
you look if you ever look back through history and you see like around the beginnings of various wars and stuff, one of the things that you'll see a lot is like countries switch sides, right? They were in some sort of an alliance and then they switched alliances, or they left one group and joined another. And when you look at that in a post-war context, it's hard to imagine people or countries doing that. You're like, what do you mean you switch sides? There's no switching sides. You're either on you're on the free side, or you're on the communist side, or you're on the Western democratic norm side, or you're on the dictator side. Like there's clearly defined lines and nobody moves. And now we're in a place where Trump can be bought or convinced and move and switch sides really easily and very fluidly.
Whoever's in front of him.
Yeah. And so, like, you do see how, okay, if you've got a leader who is only interested in their own bank account or only interested in their own feelings at that moment, how you get stuck in a World War I, or how you get stuck in a Franco-Prussian War, or how you get stuck in several Boer Wars, that these things were kicked off by countries switching sides on each other over and over again. I mean, like France and England, were at war for several hundred years in conflicts that they and Spain was on both sides of that entire war for the whole time. Like, that's not comprehensible, but it is how things work. We're going that way again. And that was a state of constant war. And I don't think that that's where we want to be, but it is. Right now, it doesn't look like it.
No, there'll be fallout from a lot of this.
Yeah. And history is about informing your future. And it's good to look at that and just see like, oh, instability is generally bad.
Even the timelines are matching up. Like, if you look at right, you look back at certain time, right?
I don't want to be that person, but it's kind of feels like that sometimes. But just in general, I'm just saying, like, the steady hand is valuable. The Jay Powell version of leadership is valuable. You want that. You want the steady hand that is slow to make a move when lives are at stake. And the way we know that Trump deals with steak is to overcook it and put ketchup on it. So it is not where I want my life at.
Well, we're here.
Yeah. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. But for this break, Brian is not going to play us a video with a bunch of lyrics that we can't stand. He is going to play us a video with a video of somebody we can't stand.
There we go.
We know what's coming. And so this is going to be a good break. And we'll be right back after this break that we're definitely teeing up to talk about with this break. We'll be back with the second half of the show. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
And then they go, who?
I now recognize myself for 5 minutes for the purpose of asking questions. No one is here today to harm transgenders. We are here to defend girls and women, and we are here to defend Title IX and to uphold President Trump's executive order that all biological males stay out of girls' and women's sports. Here displayed behind me is the post that Mr. Lefelt put up. Mr. Lefelt came in here today saying that this is game day. You're right, Mr. Lefelt, this is game day. Under the Ted Stevens Act, USA Fencing and other national governing bodies that are authorized to oversee individual sports on a national level have a certain obligation. One such duty is to provide support and encouragement for participation by women, where separate programs for male and female athletes are conducted on a national basis. Another statutory duty is to promote a safe environment in sports that is free from abuse of any amateur athlete, including emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Mr. Lefelt, as the board chair of USA Fencing, surely you are aware of these legal requirements. That means you believe that forcing a woman to compete against a biological man promotes a safe environment that is free from emotional abuse. Is that correct?
One moment. A point of order, please,
You're
Madam
not.
Chair.
You're not.
Madam
okay, what is
Chair,
your order?
I have a point of order. The document that you have up behind you is a misrepresentation of the actual post. It appears that you're trying to misrepresent a witness here who you use subpoena powers against.
This is not Miss Stansbury. Miss Stansbury, this is not a point of order.
The actual picture.
Miss Stansbury, you're not recognized. Miss Stansbury, you're not recognized. Miss Stansbury, you are not recognized.
Madam Chairwoman,
You are not. This is not a point of order, Miss Stansbury. This is not a point of order.
You are misrepresenting what this committee does. You are misrepresenting the witnesses. You are misrepresenting policy. You are misrepresenting.
Miss Stansbury, you're not recognized. You're not recognized. That's not a point of order. You're abusing the rules of this committee. This is the post of Mr. Leifelt that he posted himself on his own social media. And that's exactly why we have it displayed here today, because Mr. Leifelt believes that he can take away the opportunities for women to compete in USA fencing, and he thinks this is game day to defend biological men. Now, we're going to return to my time as chair of this committee. Ms. Turner, refusing to compete against a man cost you a 12-month probation. Did you feel you were in a safe environment, free from abuse, when you were told you must compete against a man in an all-out competition?
No.
No, that wasn't free from emotional abuse. Ms. McNabb, when a biological man spiked a ball into your head, were you free from physical or emotional abuse?
I was not.
Ms. McNabb, did you feel you were placed in a safe environment when you faced a biological male in a girls' volleyball game?
No, I did not feel safe.
Ms. Turner, were you safe when you were forced to go up against a biological male in your sport?
No, I was not.
Mr. Leifelt, do you think your perception of what constitutes a safe environment for women is more valid than that of a woman testifying here today?
Congresswoman, thank you for your question. There was a study that was published in 2010 regarding the safety of sports in the Olympic movement. There were 51 sports that were assessed as part of that study.
That's a yes or no question, Mr. Leifelt. Do you is that your perception? You're sitting next to a young woman who received a brain injury from a biological male. Is it safe to compete against biological males? Yes or no, Mr. Leifelt?
What happened to Miss?
Yes or no?
What happened to Miss McNabb?
I'll take that as a no. Mr. Leifelt, do you think forcing a woman to change in front of a man in a locker room is abusive? Yes or no?
Congresswoman, I'm not sure I
Do
follow
you
the
want your
question.
daughter to change in front of biological men in locker rooms? Yes or no?
My daughter isn't really something that should be part of this hearing,
I'm gonna.
respectfully.
If you're not a quick no on that, we're gonna take that as a no.
Okay, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond.
We're killing it on the breaks today. Like, what is?
So, if you were listening to that, you heard the brief exchange of the congresswoman from New Mexico try to be like, hey, that's not what's in that picture. But if you were watching on the video, you saw them like dangling the photo behind Marge as she was misrepresenting what was going on there. I just love her opening. She's like, nobody's here to harm transgenders. What? Who talks like that? She needs like a hashtag the transgenders.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
Oh my God! What a fucking show that lady is. Speaking of brain damage, Jesus Christ! How many volleyballs did she get hit with?
Yo, how are they going to pass a beautiful bill when they need people like that to sign it? I don't know how it's possible that they even comprehend what's happening, but that's not what matters anymore. They're like those hearings. I get. It's almost like people should ignore these things, but I know they're going to send the fucking Pam Bondi sending fucking people to come snatch you up after that. But it's like, what are we going to the subpoena for? It's like I can't answer the question.
The questions that she's asking are ridiculous.
Yeah,
and
but I can't even answer them.
Also, the details of the people, the witnesses that she's saying, like, these young ladies who were supposedly harmed by these things, first of all, they now have this career speaking to these groups where they get to spend the rest of their lives talking about how they were harmed by the transgenders, but also that the details of what they're claiming don't line up. It's just not true. None of the things that they're saying are true. And
it's also when you platform this way, then it then dictates to the country that this is like some crazy large crazy issue that's coming to your town and it's taking over your town, where it's you can't no, it's very hard for folks to even be able to like they talk about this like right with the court, like, have you been impacted by it? Like right, is anything, no one's been impacted by any of this stuff, and these things are not like
they're not real. They're not real.
But then when you platform this, the real issue ends up being that this turns it's others people, and then those people end up getting harmed, killed.
Of course,
speak for themselves.
Yeah,
but like the initial argument is like, yo, in your community, do you have an example of this happening? No, but the way it's platformed will make you think that it's happening down the street from you and down the street from everybody. Like, and that's
I want to know what locker rooms Marge is in where people are naked and changing next to each other. Like,
I've been in a few locker rooms. I've never seen that happen. All right.
Yeah,
I think she's been watching a lot of Starship Troopers. So because there's a lot of that unisex, or maybe Ally McBeal because of that unisex bathroom.
Yeah, but okay, even then, like, I used the bathroom at work today, and I was in my stall, and I did not interrogate who was in the stalls next to me. I didn't care. That wasn't what I was there to do, and it didn't make any difference. It wasn't what I mean, nobody is doing this. Just literally nothing. This is not happening. It could have been a biological woman next to me. What difference would that have made between me and the porcelain god that I was busy praying to at that moment?
But it's sold as people are out here with the genitals out, walking around. That's what the people are afraid. And again,
just
you know what?
Flapping around, running through the locker room.
You know what? Again, if you believe that, I could see why you might be like, what? Like, again, I'm giving the olive branch. I could see where you're like, that's a wild place we live in, where people got the genitals out, and then the biological men, but they're like, I can see where all of this becomes, but that's not happening. No one's doing that. Okay, that's not happening.
Anyway, all right. Here's something that is happening. So you may remember that we talked about how Trump and Elon basically are firing all the parts of the government, especially the parts of the government that help the people who mostly voted for Donald Trump. In this case, we're talking about coal miners. So there's part of HHS, which is called NIOSH, that's the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Hazards or something like that. And they're basically, they do several things, but they look after coal miners. And they do it in several ways. One way is that they're the ones who certify and test all of the like respirators and safety gear that you might use in those kind of circumstances. The respirators, like, for example, that I have at work are certified by NIOSH to meet like a certain standard. This is also the agency that is in charge of the black lung settlements and tracking and all of this stuff. If you don't know anything about coal, you might not know this, but there is a condition called black lung. It affects roughly 1 in 5 coal miners. It is nearly unavoidable. And even if you do wear a proper respirator all the time, you could still end up with this. And it's a product of getting coal dust in your lungs, and it causes this terrible condition and disease where you're basically suffocating as you're living, and your lung capacity diminishes and diminishes and diminishes until it's zero and you die. And NIOSH does the job of treating this and helping the people and giving them extra money because they can't work anymore because of the black lung. So like these people literally give their life to dig coal out of the ground to keep the lights on for all the rest of us. And Elon fired all of the people whose job it is in the government to take care of these people. Well, they were reinstated. Some of them were reinstated. 328 employees were reinstated after an outcry from a bunch of Republicans in these coal mining areas. We're like, hey, it turns out we need these guys. And
people love the government. That's what people want to fucking do in this country. They love the fucking government. All right.
They do.
Yeah.
And they love the services that it provides. This is this thing that we keep talking about. Government is not innovative. It is a responsive organization. It responds to a problem. And if the problem is coal miners are dying of black lung, let's create an agency that helps them.
It was late to the party. Because we needed coal.
Because we need the coal.
We don't need them dead.
Right. And so while this part of HHS was late to the party and many people died and didn't have proper respirators before they got there, it is a response to that. And then taking it away doesn't take away the thing that it was responding to. The stimulus is still there. The response is just gone, you fucking morons. So, like, they keep doing this. In the hearings, though, when Bobby Kennedy was up there telling everybody not to take medical advice from him, some of the Democratic Congress people were like, oh, so if Republicans cry, they get their services back. What about flood victims? What about all of the tobacco prevention programs, or what about all the missing kid programs that get administered through HHS, or what about, who do we call to get that stuff turned back on, you fucking moron? And Kennedy is like, I don't know who to call. You want to know why he doesn't know? Because he's unqualified at the highest to be in this job, and he's harmful. He wanted those people to die. He wants this thing. Why did he take away Narcan? What the fuck?
You find a phone, you call.
Yeah. Speaking of government agencies that people utterly depend on.
This one is insane. I was reading this story earlier in the week, and I was at work going off about this and being like, hey, right when the season is upon us, they decided to get rid of the hurricane.
So there's two organizations in the United States. Sorry, hold on. If I do this, I have to like hide it so it looks like it's my middle finger. How do I do that? Let me see here. Okay. There you go, Marge. So there's two organizations in the United States that are dedicated to predicting the weather and specifically the pathway of large, dangerous storms and floods and those kinds of things.
The only type of storms we have now. It's only large and dangerous storms.
One of those is NOAA, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and the other is Waffle House. And Waffle House needs to know this because they need to know whether they're going to be open during that hurricane or not. So they also have a very advanced forecasting operation. But NOAA also contains the National Weather Service, and just to be very clear, all the weather apps, all the TV meteorologists, all the things that you have ever used to predict the weather, every radar you've ever looked at, comes from the National Weather Service.
And the weather apps have been acting more WMATA than weather apps as late. Like, hey, bus is arriving. You look up and down the street and there's no bus. Rain, there's no rain. Sunshine, there's rain. There's been a few times where I'm looking at this and I'm like, wait, this is not true to what's happening in the area I'm at. It is raining and it doesn't say it's raining on my damn phone.
So Elon fired all of the meteorologists at the National Weather Service, trying to close that down. Now, the National Weather Service operates like 1 million of these satellite offices all through the country. They need to have people close to the place where the forecasts are happening,
Right.
because they're gathering very, very granular weather data, and they're doing important things. They're maintaining the radar systems that like track these storms, right? The Doppler radar and the infrared and all of that. They're also launching weather balloons all the time. People really don't understand this, but on a more than daily basis, several times a day, the Weather Service is launching these weather balloons in various places across the United States and even around the world that are dropping sensors or collecting data on important parts of how the atmosphere works. The atmosphere is like an ocean of air that we are on the bottom of, and it is moving around all the time. It's being convected around, stirred up by the heat from the sun, and a lot of crazy shit happens up in the atmosphere. It doesn't just rain because the weatherman told you it's going to rain, and it doesn't rain because my people flipped the switch and turned on the rain. It rains because of energy exchanges, pressure differentials, the amount of moisture in the atmosphere. Even it turns out every drop of rain that has ever fallen on planet Earth starts by coalescing around a little particular bacteria that lives up in the upper atmosphere and creates enough of a bit of dust or a bit of something for vapor to coalesce on and condense on to become a water droplet. And
may it rain forever. May it continue to rain. Please.
Right.
Please.
And the way we know that is because of all of the data that the Weather Service and all the scientists gather. So when they fire them, these areas and these forecasting offices go unstaffed. And we have not been at a period without 24/7 Weather Service like watching things since basically the war, at the end of the war, or the 50s. Okay. And we're utterly dependent on this information. There is not a piece of American society that doesn't need to know the weather all the time. And now it's like hyper accurate because of all of these detailed bits of data that the people are gathering. So when they fire them all, there's no fucking data and nobody knows what's happening. So like the forecasts are all wrong, and there's not people in places where they need them. Now, some places get different kinds of weather, right? Yeah. We live in the Washington area, and in Washington, the most dangerous kinds of weather we get are like severe thunderstorms, but we don't really get hurricanes. We don't really get tornadoes. We don't get much in the way. So like staffing our weather facilities in terms of life safety is maybe a little less critical than like, say, South Florida or the Gulf Coast or Tornado Alley.
Correct.
Guess where they don't have any people?
In all the places you named.
Exactly. So the Weather Service is now begging staff to transfer to those offices. They've got 155 vacancies that the agency is seeking to fill by the end of this month, by the end of May, including key weather forecasting positions at offices in coastal Texas, Louisiana, and states that could face threats from the Atlantic hurricane season that begins in a few weeks. NOAA, the Weather Service's parent agency, is also seeking large numbers of meteorologists to move to offices in places like Alaska and across the northern plains in Nebraska, Wyoming, and South Dakota, places that people don't usually want to just move to for no reason. And the people who were there, you should have been like buying them pizza every other week for being willing to live there and use their scientific knowledge to help these people who live in these very vulnerable places.
What's wild is that there's going to be so many people who make a lot of money from this because the government is going to end up paying people to do this. Like they're going to give them these incredible bonuses because, again, these are needed services. And once you fire people, they go on. Obviously, I think the private sector will consumes a bunch of these individuals. But yeah, now you got to pay people who might even be less qualified than the people that you had before because maybe they're doing some shit they've never done before. But they're like, hey, yo, like I'm the closest thing you got. Like I might know half of the system, but I've never done it in the planes. But maybe I can go out there and kind of figure it out. But no, you're gonna have to pay me because why else would I go out there? Like you're up, like definition of hustling backwards that's happening right now.
But see, I think that you kind of hit on the thing that they're really doing here is that they're trying to privatize government. And so if you fire all the weather service forecasters and scientists, and then you still need that service, what you do then is those people form a company and contract that service back to the federal government at a premium, and this costs the government more money. So this supposed efficiency thing is all a fucking ruse, and what they're trying to do is have Tesla Weather be the one that provides this information back to the federal government.
That's not going to work
at a premium.
Yeah, but that's not going to, like, eventually that's not going to continue on. And like, I mean, maybe this is a grift. Obviously it's a grift, but like maybe this is like a 4-year grift. But like, if I think 15 years from now, will NOAA still be privatized? I don't think that's the case. I think eventually the government, whatever that looks like at that point, will then reabsorb that and figure out how, because it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's going to have to reconstruct everything that got
reconstructed
the first time after the war. But it shouldn't have to do that because we know how it needs to go. But I'm not sure that that's going to happen because I think, again, I don't think that there's going to be democratic government in the United States going forward, and I think that they're just going to be able to.
No, it's built on democratic government, right? And I'll put the air quotes on there. So like eventually, whatever pushes towards it, it's going to, like, whatever strife that's ever happened in this country has always become more democratic because something has been pulling against it.
People get pissed off.
Yeah, it pulls against it, and everybody's like, wait, all right. And like, again, you look at slavery, right? If we go to the root of it all, it's kind of like, hey, yo, you're not going to fill the West with goddamn slaves and fuck up the economy for people that actually have jobs there. Right. We're not letting slavery expand there. And then it morphs into other things, right? I mean, like, again, like, but the initial thing is like, yo, there's no way we're letting the South take over the West. Like, eventually, I think all of this, I think that'll always be true about this country, that people eventually push back. And like, again, it always gets scary because when they push back, just wow, like again, it's a whole civil war here.
Yeah, you're predicating this on that the pushback is ultimately successful, and it might be, but I think for a good while they might be able to stave it off, and I think they're going to just line their pockets while they can.
That's the thing. People are going to get paid big time with this, no matter.
I mean, it's really crazy
now.
4 forecasting offices, 2 in California's Central Valley and 1 in western Kansas and another in eastern Kentucky. The staff is so thin that there aren't enough people to cover the overnight shifts. Which is really dangerous because these are places that are heavily impacted by adverse weather. We already saw major flooding in Kentucky. You, of course, know Kansas is famous for all the tornadoes. Thank you, Wizard of Oz. And California is always on fire. These are all really important
2 days ago, didn't I think I read 2 days ago in Virginia, a kid died in a freaking creek. That's that just like it's here too. Like
the flash flooding happens here.
Yeah.
Yes. Offices in Wyoming, Michigan, Oregon, and Alaska are expected to soon follow suit. It is a very critical function of government that people, again, continue, I don't want to pay taxes for this. Fine, you're not. You're paying taxes for the goddamn weather. You keep the radar running. That's what your taxes are for. You don't like anything else, it's for the weather. Have the day you voted for. Kansas, Kentucky, have the day. I don't. Yeah. Let's keep right on going. We're not going to hit this break.
I'm sorry. I have one thing to say here. The war on words, 10 arguments against free speech and why they fail.
Wait, I thought they love free speech.
Yeah, well, no.
Okay, this category or segment is called incomprehensible news. Now, this is just like stories that
Isn't that
true.
what we just did? We did that?
Yeah, but I needed another category.
All right.
These are things that are true but seem completely impossible. You ready for this sentence?
Hit me with it.
The tough on crime former Fox News host Jeanine Pirro, President Donald Trump's new pick for interim U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., led a political committee that repeatedly flouted election laws and stiffed numerous creditors out of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Ed Martin Part 2.
Yeah, but with red wine. Pirro's 2006 U.S. Senate campaign failed for years to file mandatory financial reports with the Federal Election Commission, despite repeated warnings from regulators, according to federal records. The Pirro committee's $600,000 in total debts involved nearly 24 creditors,
Jesus
including
Christ.
Mercury Public Affairs, Verizon, and the U.S. Postal Service. They owe the post office $1,600. You think Jeanine Pirro doesn't have $1,600?
It liquid?
Oh, liquid for sure. 750 milliliters at a time.
Fifth.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Fifth.
Pirro's campaign committee owed more than $222,500 to the Lukens Company, a prominent marketing agency based here in the Commonwealth, and the committee's single largest creditor. Lukens did not respond to a request for comment.
Yes,
So-
they can't afford it. They need the money.
They need the money, right? And they don't want Pirro to send her goons after him. For more than 5 years, the Federal Election Commission refused to allow the Pirro for Senate committee to terminate itself. They kept trying to say, oh, we don't exist anymore, so we don't owe this money. Federal regulators continued to send threatening notices when Pirro's office failed to comply with federal finance disclosure requirements. Their argument is that we lost the race, and these debts were based on a contract. Let me see. Here's my favorite part of this. In 2019, the Pirro for Senate committee attempted to terminate itself without paying the debts, arguing in a handwritten letter to the FEC, quote, "These debts based on contract are not collectible, as the New York State 6-year statute of limitations has long passed." Handwritten letter? She dashed it off on a bar napkin? What is this? Steve Heggs have helped her?
And sour grapes, obviously.
Oh.
I can't wait when she's out here, she's the U.S. attorney for D.C. And she's like, they say you're a criminal. Well, you're a criminal.
yeah. She's just her whole trial structure is just gonna be based on shouting.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is she makes it through maybe we'll just keep having a revolving door.
She's an interim. She's appointed for up to 120 days. There's no push yet to get her sent.
How much more is going to come out before then? That's
probably a lot. It's not going to matter. He's just going to get another interim.
Yeah, and we'll just keep running. Obviously, oh my God, it's clear we need to have a whole constitutional convention. We all got to come down. We got to hey, this interim shit can't really happen. No. It needs to even be it can't be
no
an
recess appointments.
We gotta it's clear what needs to happen in this country, but it's almost the only way that you can get there is some type of armed conflict.
All right, we'll both say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Benevolent dictatorship.
No.
Wait, that wasn't yours? Okay.
No, sorry.
Listen.
Sure.
You keep saying no. You would fare very well in the ChipChat Republic.
I know. Look, I can fare well in this republic too. There's easier ways. You would
be Librarian of Congress immediately.
Oh, there we go.
Right?
That sounds like an awesome job.
Yeah. I hear it's vacant.
Yeah, it's definitely vacant.
Don't worry, they don't want to hire you either. All right. Johannesburg, South Africa. We alluded to this earlier in the headlines. A group of 59 white Afrikaners who have been given refugee status by the Trump administration arrived at Dulles on Monday.
This is insane.
On a charter flight. They not only that, one document seen by NPR says that that there would be food and items for the children upon arrival. It said the Refugee Services Office of the Catholic Diocese of Virginia would be on site to offer assistance. The Episcopal Church, which has long been one of the major resettlement organizations in the United States for refugees in general, quit over this because they are, the other half of the Anglican Church, to which you may remember Desmond Tutu was a part of, and who won a Nobel Prize trying to end apartheid. They're like, we can't possibly be involved in this kind of bullshit. And they're Episcopalians. It takes a lot for them to say bullshit. But that was a direct quote. After the press conference, the families will depart for their end destinations in several states, including Minnesota, Nevada, and Idaho. Then they'll have a pathway to U.S. citizenship and be eligible for government benefits.
So
now,
like welfare.
Like welfare. And all of these other things.
What the fuck, y'all? God damn! God damn!
Now, you may say, wait a minute. There's other refugees who get stuff like this, right? No, there aren't. You want to know why? Because the Trump administration stopped accepting refugees the instant they were sworn in. And lots of people who had been...
They're important white Cubans.
Right. Lots of people who had been waiting their turn nicely in their refugee camps, having filed all the paperwork and were able to pay their own way to the United States, were told, no, you can't come in. And in that group, I would point out, are like Afghan translators who helped America during the war and are about to get murdered by the Taliban. Those guys can't come in. But these white guys from South Africa who owned farms, still own the farms?
I guess, yeah, I assume that. They didn't seem to be super skilled workers, except for me.
No.
So Brian used to live in this part of the world and has some experience with these Rhodesians.
Well, there's a difference between Rhodesians and Afrikaners.
We know. We're lumping them all.
I know you're trying to lump them in. I get it.
White colonizer bullshit. Okay.
Yeah.
To quote your sound effect, what the fuck is going on here?
This is... I really think based off of Trump's new fat friend,
Jeez.
he I don't know, he's crying, telling us, hey, can you help these people out? And really, if you talk to the South African government, and especially the South African president, it's like there's nothing going wrong here. Nothing. So
are these people in any kind of danger, imminent or otherwise?
If you saw, let me post the picture up again. If you look at these kids, and all of a sudden they look like they just got a bed from Disneyland. I mean, it's like, come on. There's nothing wrong with these people. I don't know what
dirt on their face or tried to look pitiful like the South African kids or something.
Do they not know black people are here too? You're running from the black people in South Africa. There are black people here. I don't know where they're going. There'll be black people. There'll be other type of black people as well. It's not just like South Africans. It's gonna be like people going to Minnesota, like when they see Somalians, like what is going to happen? Like, do they not know what's?
And mind you, the states that you mentioned, the fact that they're going to Minnesota, Idaho, and Nevada, and it's God knows where, probably in northern Nevada. Like maybe like Reno or something like that. I mean, to me, this it screams, full well, it screams bullshit. And top it off with the guy who's probably representing the State Department, him stating that I understand your pain and suffering. And when he made that quote, I was like, what pain and suffering? What pain and suffering?
Mark Rubio said that?
No, this dude.
Oh, the
guy who introduced them, the guy in the gray suit or whatever.
Terrible.
He introduced them, or brought them in or welcomed them, what do you want to call it? And it just, his stat statement alone, when I saw the video, is like, these people are not suffering. They're coming into Disneyland and they're going to have a field day here.
Wait till they get to Minnesota and find out that the favorite person of everybody in that state is Prince.
Probably, yeah. So, I mean, I unless you understand the during especially the time that I was there. This is like the late 80s, early 90s. This is before Nelson Mandela was able to be free. I mean, there was like rumblings that they were, they're finally going to end apartheid. And I'll give you this mild story. My first ever concert was the Amnesty International, and they had it in Harare, Zimbabwe. It's the edge of where they would love to go into South Africa to do this, but they did it in Zimbabwe because of the reason being that a lot of the artists didn't want to play in South Africa because of apartheid.
Right.
For this aspect to sort of like, okay, you got all these, post-apartheid families feeling like, again, everything's been ripped apart, or their livelihood has been changed, and it's like, yeah, things have changed, and you have not properly adapted. That is it. I mean, and the simple fact is, like, you're not on top anymore.
They're mad that they don't get to oppress people. That's their like reason to seek
and if you
refuge.
look at those people there, I bet you those are generational apartheidists. I mean,
Yes.
literally. Because they feel it's like, okay, that's why they feel like throwing in that, oh, you're a refugee, and it's like, look, they're not in a war, they're not suffering, they haven't lost anything majorly. So what makes you think they're in
South Africa is like
refugee?
A relatively stable democracy that's a functional country. There's nothing. It's not like falling apart. It's a modern cosmopolitan nation. You can just walk to McDonald's there the same way you can here. Like.
Right. But they don't, or I mean, they really do not understand. Again, this government, our United States government, led by a moron that is infected by a foreign moron who does not know what's really going on this planet, and it pretty much is like you're trying to save a quote unquote race from whatever extinction that is in your damn mindset.
Is there any way to call this anything other than blatantly racist?
No, because if you're going to deny Haitians, Cubans, anyone from South America or Central America, because based on, and from the Middle East and all that stuff, and they're going through war-torn stuff. They've lost a lot of more than you ever imagined, and you're going to deny them any type of quote unquote political freedom access to come to this country just so they can have a life now. But you're going to save a whole bunch of suburban Afrikaners for what? Really? Unless they lived in Soweto, I don't want to hear it. Because it's like, I've been through that place. I've seen the metal houses that a lot of those people lived in. No way in the world that those people lived in suburban Joburg. And I know full well they just pretty much lost their damn pool privileges. That was it.
Let me tell you also that
they lost their pool privileges.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me tell you also that this is happening while the same State Department that granted them refugee status and brought them to this country and is giving them a path to citizenship recently declared that Afghanistan is now safe enough to begin deporting people back to, even including people who worked for and with the American government during the 20-year war that we perpetrated there, and who the Taliban are very anxious to meet.
You know who wrote the State Department statement?
Who?
The Ravens.
You're so wrong. That's why Arsenal is not in the freaking finals, and you need to be buried. And you're never going to win a damn Premier League Cup either. Go Gunners.
This is maximum DJ to ourselves right here, but that was fantastic. Take that, Brian.
It's a kind statement. It's a very kind statement to these poor people who know and did such great things for so many years. That we allowed them to come over here. Aren't they Dutch? Can they go there?
Yeah.
Why would I send them back to the Netherlands?
Go back home.
Because the Dutch don't want them. They are not that racist anymore.
Well, hold on. What's Where's Black Pete? Isn't Black Pete still going on? Hold on. No, let me do some research real quick.
All right. Well, while you do that, let's take a trip down to Texas. So as you know, Texas hates everything, and they passed this. The Texas Senate passed a law or a bill this week that would allow anyone who manufactures or distributes, mails, prescribes, or provides anti-abortion or abortion-inducing medication, to be sued for up to $100,000. It expands the wrongful death statute to encourage family members, especially men who believe that their partner had an abortion, to sue up to 6 years after the event, and empowers the Texas Attorney General to bring lawsuits on behalf, quote, of unborn children and residents of this state. Now, that is on its face pretty standardly Texas fuckery. However, they added this extra thing. They said that you can't go to court to fight this law. It's pretty crazy. The bill says that no state judge has jurisdiction to rule on its constitutionality, and that if they were to do so anyway, that they can be personally sued the judge for $100,000. The judge would waive their usual protections of government immunity and could not call on the office of the Attorney General to defend them in court. I don't know how that's even possible. Nobody knows how this is possible. Brian Hughes, a Republican from Mineola and an author of the bill, said that the law could still be challenged in federal court, but removing the state judiciary's oversight of the law is within the legislature's purview. Quote, "We make the rules," he said on the floor of the Senate. "We set the jurisdiction." Senator Nathan Johnson, a Dallas Democrat, called it, quote, "a flagrant, brazen transgression of the principle of the separations of powers on which this country and state were founded. It just seems to me that we're holding the judicial branch of the government in contempt if we're going to tell them that they can't review our work. And I'm surprised that we're not equally troubled by this." Imagine if the Democrats had gone into, passed a law that's saying challenging the civil rights laws or Voting Rights Act were that is not legal. You can't challenge it. What? Can't challenge it in court. Fuck you, Texas. That's ridiculous. Now, it hasn't passed the Texas House yet. It might not. But the fact that they even gave this a go is just kind of like, what? Incomprehensible. There you go.
I gotta be honest. I started looking up Black Pete, and there's like an Al Jazeera story from 2020 that might be like my test talk next week. We might go back in time. I gotta do some research to see where we're at now. But I was reading a few blurbs from it, and I was like, did George Floyd kill Black Pete? Or is like everything else that happened with, well, no, I know it seems weird, but I know. Let me
Brian, hit the button. Nope.
Let me rephrase that.
What?
The George Floyd protest. I know. The George Floyd protests end up killing the tradition of Black Pete because it was racially insensitive. But I'm wondering, with everything else that happened with George Floyd, did they kill it? But now there's a resurgence. I have to do more research on this. But this article is insane. I'm so sorry. This is a derailment. But did George?
There's your clip of the week right there. Did George Floyd kill Black Pete?
I'll follow up next week with more. I gotta.
My favorite thing about you is that I'm proud and ashamed of you at the same time, all the time.
The phrasing was so bad on that.
I don't know what to say. We're just going to move on to the next story.
All right, yeah.
Because that's too much. This one is called the Ick Factor.
Is that what I just did?
No. Yes. Okay, in a similar fashion, I think one of the things that we've talked about on this show a lot is that me, as the Jewish kid, doesn't like it when non-Jewish people tell me what anti-Semitism is. That's not okay, and that's not how that works. And it's even more galling when the Trump administration, which is full on anti-Semites, says crazy things. For example, Trump campaigned on a pledge to fight anti-Semitism. Here's a direct quote: "Anti-Semitic bigotry has no place in a civilized society," he said at an event in 2024. However, here are some people who are in his administration currently. One of them, of course, is Ed Martin, who couldn't fulfill his job as the U.S. Attorney for the district because he keeps hanging out with and going on the podcast of this dude called Hale Cusinelli. I forget what his first name is.
What's this Hale Cusinelli? I don't.
Yeah, he's a hyphenated. We've got, let's see, who gets name checked in this? We've got Kanye, Nick Fuentes, and Timothy Hale Cusinelli. Tim, as they like to call him. So there's Ed Martin. There's also this guy who is the White House liaison to the Department of Homeland Security. His name is Paul Ingracia. He's currently serving in that liaison role. In 2023, Ingracia repeatedly praised Andrew Tate, who has long denied the severity of the Holocaust, said it's kind of no big deal. Also, rapist. So, fantastic. Remember, this is the administration that is kicking out students at Columbia out of the country, or attempting to, for being anti-Semites. This is this administration, okay? Has this guy in it, Paul Ingracia, who says that the Tate brothers provide an opportunity for a better future, one that inspires rather than degrades men. Okay. The ADL says
they need to be defending Diddy.
I bet he will soon.
Soon.
He also attended a June 2024, so not like a long time ago, like very recently, within the last 12 months, rally in Detroit led by Nick Fuentes, who is a Holocaust denier, also famously had dinner with Kanye and Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Fuentes began the speech that Paul Ingracia was at with the words, quote, "Down with Israel."
Seems kind of...
Went on to say, "I don't know about you, but calling Donald Trump as a racist only makes me like him more." That's a direct quote from that rally said by Nick Fuentes, attended by Paul Ingracia, who works for Donald Trump, who says he hates bigotry and anti-Semitism. Then there's this journalist, Amanda Moore, spotted him in the crowd, said he was there for 20 minutes. He was chanting, "We want Nick, we want Nick" on social media. Ingracia has written that dissonant voices like Nick Fuentes belong in conservative politics. He wrote a Substack titled "Free Nick Fuentes," criticizing Twitter for banning him. He also supported the Patriot Freedom Project, which advocates for people charged in connection with January 6th. The Tim that he keeps referring to and talking about that in many stories is Timothy Hale Cusinelli, who was convicted of multiple nonviolent offenses for storming the Capitol and was later pardoned by Trump. You might want to Google that guy and take a look at what he looks like. They describe him as a, quote, the federal prosecutors describe Hale Cusinelli as a Nazi sympathizer who once went to work at a naval weapons station with, quote, a Hitler mustache. He also recorded a lengthy anti-Semitic video rant in which he compared Orthodox Jews to, quote, a plague of locusts. This is the guy that they love, that Ed Martin gave several awards to. Lecture me again about how people protesting the genocide in Gaza is anti-Semitism, please. Before joining the Trump administration as a communications director for the White House Office of Management and Budget, OMB, Rachel Cawley, here's another one, served on the board of the Patriot Freedom Project. That's the one that was trying to get Tim out of jail. She also handled media requests for the group in 2022. The founder of Patriot Freedom gave a lengthy interview to the explicitly white nationalist website Countercurrents. There's a book title in there somehow. I don't want to read that one. After that interview received wider online attention, appeared to be removed from the White House, from the website later that year. Cawley attended part of Hale Cusinelli's criminal trial and sat with his supporters on social media. This lady, Rachel Cawley, referred to the trial, quote, as a clown trial and said Hale Cusinelli's conviction was a complete miscarriage of justice, not to be confused with the miscarriages no longer allowed in Texas. Rachel on the phone was reached by the reporter at NPR 3 times. She said, you can send me an email, and then hung up each time. Guess what happened when they sent her an email? She didn't respond. She's a comms director. She didn't respond. As
all this sounds about right.
Oh, I don't like that joke.
It's not good. But I'm just
Not
saying.
good.
I'm just saying. You just listed through a bunch of Nazis. You just went through a bunch of. I'm just saying. I don't know what else you want me to call this.
It was a veritable Schindler's List.
Oh, that is so good. Oh my God.
I don't like any of that.
Oh God.
And I don't like those people telling me what anti-Semitism is. I don't like actual Nazis, like at all. Just, I think that doesn't need to be stated, but apparently it does. Maybe, I don't know. That's not good. Don't be a Nazi.
For me to understand like the Holocaust, I don't know. My mother must have been on some like we're gonna learn today type stuff. Schindler's List might have been on. I remember watching my grandmother's house, like it probably on ABC or something.
It was on NBC. They showed it in
NBC.
Total.
Yeah, right.
They got special permission from the FCC for a lot of that.
Yes, all right. I remember watching that, and then the next day going to the Holocaust Museum to be like, oh, we're gonna reinforce this on a different level. Like, oh, you seen that on TV? And I remember they gave me my little passport in there, and you go through, and it is literally one of the most sombering things.
And at the end, you get to find out if the person whose passport you're holding makes it.
Yeah.
Hooray! How old were you?
I might have been maybe like I gotta look
like
when did they issue? Yeah, that was like midnight. I don't think I might have been 10 yet. I might have just been getting like maybe 9, maybe around there. Because I feel like that's on TV in what, maybe like 97, 98?
Yeah, 96 or 97. Because I think the museum was built or finished in 94.
Yeah.
Clinton was still president.
Yes.
And I was, old enough that, of course we went with Hebrew school. We went with not Hebrew school. Yeah, I mean, I've been there a lot. That's a lot for a kid to take in. And, whew.
Yeah, I remember vividly. I'm pretty sure my mother will tell the story. I remember we watched it on Sunday.
We should get her on the show and be like, what are the various ways that you traumatized Tez over his youth?
Oh my God. Oh God. The hair and the shoes. No, it's literally like the only other thing that there was nothing else I could equate it to. Like the only thing is the first floor of the African, yeah, like it's like the first floor of that, but it's like the whole museum is kind of like, because to me, I don't remember it being like any like it felt like it was the story of just that and not like
there are other sections of the museum that have different rotating exhibits and stuff like that, but that's the main exhibit. Yeah, it's not like the African American History Museum where you can also go see like the mothership or
I don't think
Jackie Robinson's uniform.
I don't remember any of that in that museum. It was
like
at the end, it's like, oh yeah, this person died. Okay.
There's no inspiring part of that museum.
Cool. All right, that's wild. Yeah, but
it's not meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's again, it's
and these guys, they don't go there, and they're not gonna go there because they think it's part of the woke agenda.
Yeah, that's insane.
All right. Speaking of insane, okay. There may be a caveat to this. We don't know, but let's stipulate for the record, Tez, you and I have lived most of our lives, in your case, all of my life in my case, here in the DC area.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we know is that our waterways are not safe places to swim.
No.
And one reason in the Potomac is because, of course, the undertow is famous in the Potomac, that it'll pull you under, but also because of the shit in the water, and we mean that very literally.
Yeah, the shit in the water.
Washington, D.C. is a single pipe sewer system. It has this problem where when it rains heavily, the sewage, raw sewage, overflows out of the treatment facilities and into the waterways.
Which they've started to address.
It's a lot better now because they've dug the 3 tunnels where they contain 13 billion gallons of runoff to then treat and release out appropriately. They capped off the ponds in Blue Plains and built them up into containment tanks. They did that also in Arlington at the treatment plant at 4 Mile Run. So like the Dale Carlier Reservoir has been treated and fixed up a lot in Northwest, which also supplies Arlington. It also supplies, all of DC. So like as far as securing the drinking water itself, it's miles better. But none of our waterways are safe to swim in. Like it's okay if you want to, go skipping rocks or whatever and, get your boots wet or whatever. But you definitely don't put your head underwater in any of these places.
No.
Ever.
No.
You don't eat the fish out of there. You catch the fish, you throw them back. And you wash your hands.
Twice.
Yeah. And I was on the crew team and we were like on that water. And you know what we didn't do? Get it anywhere near our faces. And then, you gotta, you just, it's what you gotta do, right? Okay. Fast forward to brainworm carrying vessel and supposed human being, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, one of the things about Kennedy's is that they have an expiration date. He's outlived his, and he's very, very upset about that. So he's trying really hard to cause it to happen. Over Mother's Day weekend, he took his grandkids to go play in Rock Creek and took videos of it. And he went and got underwater.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And he was wearing jeans.
That's crazier.
The only hope here is that he's actually upstream enough that he's not in the part of it. But during the time that he was in there, it's not good. Okay. Rock Creek Park has like these safety warnings that they put out. The water might look clean and clear, but it's hiding a lot of bacteria like fecal coliform, giardia, and other potential waterborne illnesses. Reads a warning about Rock Creek safety that appeared in the National Park Service website. It appears that the warning was posted several years ago. It's always up. You know why they've never taken it down? Because it's always true. Testing showed that during the time that he was in the water, it was an elevated E. coli and fecal coliform event. So, do with that what you will. Pray accordingly. However you feel best suits your vision of the future. Just, go ahead. Okay, Tez. Let's let you expound on your guy, man. Leo,
Robert Francis Prevost, the Chicago-born man who became Pope Leo XIV on Thursday, has Black family roots in New Orleans, Louisiana, as aforementioned earlier in this show. ABC News has obtained several records, including U.S. Census records from the early 1900s, demonstrating that the first American Pope family tree reflects a complex racial history of this country.
Woo!
Know what that means.
Not for long.
Both Leo XIV's maternal grandparents, Joseph Martinez and Louis, what is this pronounced? Is this Bequia?
Yeah, I think so.
Bequia, maybe. Are described as are described as a Black or mulatto in several census documents. Mulatto is one of the craziest ones because I'm pretty sure that mulatto is either a derivative from like what is it like the baby that it's the mule, right? If the donkey in the horse ends up having a baby, it ends up being a mule, and that cannot have babies. And they thought that mulatto peoples, because this crazy mixing, couldn't have babies. I remember like in a history class saying this in college, and the professor was like, "We're going to talk about this, but this is why we don't say this anymore, because we need to talk about really what this actually means."
That's right.
Sorry for that tangent. Just want to let you know why I'm saying mulatto.
We're here to educate.
We're here to educate. On their 1887 marriage license, Martinez listed his birthplace as Haiti. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Domingue. And the birth records show that he was born in, there it is, Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Chris Smothers, professional genealogist for 15 years, historian studying in Simmons University, told ABC News that there were the same territories at the time that Bequet's birth records shown she was born in New Orleans. On the 1900 census, while his family lived in New Orleans, both Leo XIV's maternal grandparents and his aunts, Irma and Margaret, were identified as Black. However, in 1920, the family migrated to Chicago and had the Pope and had the Pope's mother, Mildred. That decade census reflected their race as whites. Like so many families fleeing the South at the time, they could have shifted their racial identity. Smothers called this a common survival strategy at the time. So there's a lot of things here, right? So it's like, all right, right, the Pope, I always talk about how Haiti, like overthrowing the French and becoming the first Black republic, like this kicks off everything else in the rest of the world, right? It's one of those like starting points, right? Because one, Napoleon's like, "Hey Tom, you can have the rest of this America."
Yeah, you want some half of a country?
Yeah, you can have the rest of this. How about
occupied by a bunch of Indians that we don't understand how to talk to?
So yeah, you guys can figure that piece out. We know what you'll probably do. We've seen what you did before.
3 cents an acre or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's $15 million. I think it's what is the purchase price for that, right? So that's the Louisiana Purchase, right? Which gives you what is modern day America, right? Along with that, I was literally having this conversation the other day, or maybe yesterday, 2 days ago, and I was like, imagine, right? These Haitian slave owners are fleeing Haiti because it's become a Black republic. They're burning shit down. They're killing fucking Frenchmen at a high clip, but they escape, right, with their slaves, and they make it into New Orleans, right? Because it's the place you obviously are going, right? It's a melting pot at that point. It's French controlled. Yeah, it's French controlled at a certain point as well, right? And you get there, and you're like, y'all won't believe what's happening on the island right now. And then they're having that story. But not only that, the slaves are now going, and you're a slave that has made it in here to New Orleans. And now you're telling that story to other slaves. And that becomes a rallying cry, right? Really for liberation. I mean, even if you think about like the starting like of the Civil War and like a lot of those slave rebellions, this all comes from Haiti, right? And just to tie this all in then with the Great Migration, because that's how they end up going to Chicago. It's the quintessential American story. It's the American Black story right here. And it's tied in with the leader of the Catholic Church.
Which is still a huge part of like Haitian culture and society.
Yeah.
So like
huge.
How, the French Catholic reach is tremendous, that it's bouncing off the Caribbean through the American South up to Chicago and back to Rome is incredible.
Yeah.
And that it's doing it tinted.
I want to let the globalists know.
Yeah. I just, what this is going to turn into, right? Because every time he does anything, the right wing is going to interpret this as, well, of course he would. He's Black, or and now he can't screw up. He can't make a mistake, right? Because he's Black. and then it's going to drag everybody back down. Well, we had a black pope, and look at what happened.
We'll see if they lean towards that, or if someone starts to bring that up, or if people are so much to the point where it's like they don't talk about this at all, like because they don't want to acknowledge it.
I think it's something that especially since the church is growing in Africa and growing in the global South, that it's a thing that they're going to probably point to as a way to gain credibility.
We'll see. I don't know. We'll see if that ends up happening. I don't know. Like, because even at this point right now, they don't lean at him. They say he's the least American pope, right? Like, because his time he obviously spent in South America,
Peru and everything.
And he spent a lot of time in Rome as well, right? Like, but he's still American. He's grew up here, right?
He's American.
He's a White Sox fan.
A White Sox fan. Yeah. Speaking of which, sports.
Hey, segue.
Jordan Hudson, who spells her name wrong, placed in the 2025 Miss Maine USA pageant. She's 24 years old. She came in third. Her boyfriend Bill Belichick was there in the audience. She came in third in Maine. Oh, is that who won? Shelby Howell. They make Shelby's in Maine, or did she move there?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I usually inbreeding doesn't come out looking like that. I bet you she moved there.
Okay.
Population of Maine is 7. Anyway, she came in third. She was in the same pageant last year. She did better last year. I think she got in. She came in second. So she's sliding. And I think while Bill's at the UNC, he's going to ditch her and find somebody who's still 24.
I think Bill Belichick might be a hostage. 2,
yeah, you think?
2. The reporting on this, which is like, I mean, this is kind of like some like smut story stuff. Like,
it came from People Magazine. This is not legitimate journalism.
So but there is a lot of reporting on this of what's going on, and it's very interesting. I will say that it is what I can't. It's tabloid shit, right? But you do like if you break down a lot of things of like coaches not being a distraction, and if you think about this in like the football terms, and like I posit here that he never coaches a game at UNC, and the buyout will be $1 million for him in the next few weeks, and I don't think he ever coaches. And maybe
if UNC was a real football school, the boosters would definitely be talking about buying him out. I'm not sure that push exists there, and I mean, they banned Hudson from like practices or whatever because she's kind of.
But then they kind of said that they didn't do it though. Like there was like a report that ended up coming out, but like no, she's welcome to do Belichick's like social media and stuff like that. Like almost like we kicked her out, but like she's still involved. I don't know, but this man is like
the fact that they have to even address it or talk about it tells you that there's a problem here, and that. I mean, it's already weird, and then the level of control that it appears that she's exercising over his life does feel strange.
Yeah, and like again, remove I don't even want to talk about the age difference and all that. You can just set that aside and go have your own feelings about that. I'm literally talking about like the actions, like that CBS Sunday Morning interview, really weird, very weird. The Ring camera footage that ends up getting leaked earlier, like that happened, I think last year, maybe on there. It's like, who leaked that?
Yeah, right. There's only one source.
Yeah. There's reporting that his family is very worried about him.
I'm worried about him, and I don't like him.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, his son's wife hasn't had favorable things to say about Jordan.
It's a weird thing. It's a very weird thing.
Weird. It's weird.
So whatever. Speaking of the White Sox, Shoeless Joe Jackson and another famously banned from baseball individual are unbanned. Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle, is now eligible for the Hall of Fame where he belongs because he's the greatest hitter of all time. And he was banned for a lifetime from baseball for betting on baseball. Not that he ever bet against himself. He only bet on himself in the instances where he did. I don't find that there's anything wrong with that. But now that DraftKings owns Major League Baseball, they're totally like, whatever. He served his lifetime ban because he died. And now he lifetime ban is lifetime. So he's but Shoeless Joe Jackson's been dead for a long time. Okay? Ththese guys were banned for betting on baseball. Jackson was banned because he was on that Black Sox team in the 20s that basically threw a World Series. They got paid off to do so.
Dead ball era.
Yeah, in the dead ball era, right? Them doing that changed baseball. I mean, it wasn't just that they threw the World Series, but like that changed they changed the speed of the game. It changed the way that the game was played. It changed pitching forever. So say what you will about that. I'll also Field of Dreams, whatever. But Pete Rose is a thing that is in living memory. People have a lot of opinions about him. I grew up, being told of the cautionary tale of Pete Rose, and this is why you don't bet on baseball, and that it's this sacred thing, and this is what happens that the greatest hitter is not in the Hall of Fame.
The first thing I did when I went to Las Vegas was bet the over on the Marlins. The first thing I did.
You're not to bet on baseball, says God and everybody watching. Apparently the Pope. So, he's a black Pope, though, so you can decide whether you have to listen to him or not. I don't know if I'm glad. I want Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. I don't want to have to keep explaining for the rest of people who don't understand baseball how you can have somebody who's statistically the greatest who's not allowed to be counted as statistically the greatest. Like, can we put his numbers back in the records?
But there's a problem.
Of course, Brian has a problem with this.
No, I don't have a problem. I've been with this for a very long time. I have been
pro Charlie Hustle.
Yeah, I've been for Charlie Hustle since even when back then when he was.
Wait, play the breaking news thing. Breaking news: Brian agrees with Tez and Chip on things that are fun about baseball.
This is breaking news.
I remember having a good debate with my dad about this, and he throws back at me. He bet on baseball. He's not supposed to. And I was like, I get that, but one, he was a manager when he got caught,
right?
So which I get. You just shouldn't do it. But like you said, he's our hit king, and there's a plethora of all the Hall of Fame. In every Hall of Fame, there's some dark past that every person has. Someone done drugs, someone's been abusive, someone whatever. Betting on baseball.
Mike Cobb was a massive racist.
Yeah, all that stuff. So betting on baseball, especially where you're not supposed to do it. I mean, it's got to the point where it's like, I kind of felt like, all right, is this really serious? Is this a really serious offense? And then you get to the point. Go ahead.
It'd be different if, like, what Shoeless Joe Jackson did, where he threw games.
Well, here's the thing. If you remember, speaking of Shoeless Joe Jackson, you remember seeing the movie 8 Men Out?
No, but I know about it.
Okay. So besides the book and there is a book, so Tez, you can read that. In the movie,
nerd.
Pretty much it even though Shoeless Joe Jackson was a part of it, he wasn't a part of it.
Right. He wasn't orchestrating it.
Yeah, he wasn't an orchestrator. And he was just the most notable player he really pretty much was like, he still played like normal. He just somehow, people fed him money for it. And pretty much the rest of the guys, they're the ones who pretty much threw the game. So, but overall, I felt like, I felt like the lifetime ban is just like, okay, they're just, they're never going to be honored at all if they ever get in.
He's been dead for 60 years.
Right. And now you get P. Rose, who died, just in this past September. And I read somewhere where Robert Manfred was quote unquote pressured by a certain orange peel to allow this. That's just right now, I feel like it's a rumor mill. But at the same time, there's been, when P. Rose was allowed to come back for the All-Century Team honor at the All-Star game in Boston, and they were still pitching for him to come back then. I felt pretty much a lot of the oppositions was sadly from his own teammate, most notably Johnny Bench, because he's a diehard loyalist. But now that since this ban has been lifted, where I say there's a problem is it's not going to be from his former teammates or anything like that. It's going to be the baseball writers.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go with
those
this.
guys,
the writers. They're not voting him in anyways.
Yeah, and those guys are, you talk about fucking anal.
Baseball could get, but baseball has that other method where they, after a certain amount of years, where like the writers don't necessarily. I forgot.
True, they have committees.
The committees that'll end up putting.
Yeah, they have special committees, but sometimes some of those committees are those who are baseball writers were transferred over into that. And mind you, there are some players too. So my thing is like not having your home run king and your hit king in the Baseball Hall of Fame does not make sense. And it's highly unfortunate that based off of, I don't know how you interpret.
I don't want to put Bonds in the same category with Rose, because what Rose did was bet on himself to win,
right?
And he didn't do anything that altered the way that he ran up those hits, which he got all as a player, not as a manager. What Bonds did,
but at the same time, you can say with Bonds, he was allowed to use products that were pretty much approved by the Major League Baseball, and if for whatever reason, all the writers are happy to write about him and his run, Sammy Sosa and
I understand that.
Because he looks at Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire and says, "Oh wait, hold on, wait, this is what people like. They're gonna be allowed to do this, and I'm obviously a better baseball player than those two individuals and a bunch of other people. No. Let me show you when you're really good, and then when you add this again, performance enhancing, I'm going to take it to a different stratosphere, which he obviously did. But here's the thing, though. Is this the Hall of Morality? Because if it's the Hall of Morality, then Pete Rose shouldn't be fucking in there because let's do the sexual assault charges. And there's other things we could go down the road for that. But it's not the Hall of Morality, right? No. It's the Hall of Fame, right?
And the numbers and the stats and the careers and all that stuff. I mean, I felt like if you just base it off of that, he's in.
Yes, and he deserves to be in it. But do you think that the writers who are, these purists who write dumb articles about how bat flipping is ruining baseball are gonna give up and let him in? They're gonna be shitty about that too.
Unless you get to the point where no one can. Again, this is where you can go back into the prior story about the Afrikaners. These are generationalists. These are people who pretty much, are going to keep being fed about certain stories, about certain players, about certain times, and they're going to be told, don't put this person in because this person did this person did that. And I think that's the sad influence. And because unless, you get those writers who have the distinctive know-how to say, hey, I'm going to vote who I want to vote, and I want to put the guy who I feel is going to put the person in. The sad thing is that's why we're getting a lot of these young, these newer generational people coming into the halls, those who only been retired less than 5 years. Mind you, their numbers are worthy, but at the same time, it's like you got a whole bunch of guys who've been waiting in the wings for 20 years, maybe even longer. And the sad thing here is with Pete Rose is like the only people who are gonna, if he does get in, only his family members are gonna remember it, not Pete. And I think that to me, to this day, I feel is an injustice because it's like he deserves to be there. He deserves to make his speech his way. The way I rather hear
He
him
said he
say
didn't want to
instead of
be
Pete
in
Rose
it.
Jr.
Yeah. He said
Right.
that. There's quotes of this. Him. He said it. Yeah. If you put me in, he said that's not how the Hall of Fame should work. No, that's not what you should be done in that camp. This is
So in honor of Pete Rose, I think what we ought to do is take a bet on when he'll make it in. If it'll be first ballot or what's the over under here?
No, I think he makes it on one of these committees.
You don't think he gets voted in by the writers at all?
No.
Okay. I'll bet you
if
beer
he-
on that. Brian,
If
you
he
want
gets
some of this
voted by
action?
committee, it will be probably within 10 years.
10 years sounds good. Yeah, that's.
So you're going to say by committee within 10 years?
Yeah, it'll not be sooner than that.
Okay. I'll take that bet too. So 10 years from now, you guys maybe owe me a beer.
DraftKings, call us.
Yeah. Right. But we
We're open
figured
for
out a way to make a prop bet on.
We're open for business.
We'll do your live reads.
Yeah,
We're funnier than Kevin Hart. Okay.
You're tuned into the DraftKings Network.
That's right. Now we've come to the end of the show. We want to say thank you to all of our listeners, all 4 of them, I guess, at this point. No, for real, we've seen like a lot of growth in the last few weeks. We really don't know why, but we appreciate it, and thank you for all of that. Thank you to our radio partners, Google, iTunes, your old Rio MP3 player. Thanks to NOTN for keeping us on for another week, we assume, although we don't know. Thanks to our home on the interwebs, coplaymedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Beltway Radio for making us sound as smooth as Bill Belichick's next girlfriend. All right, where can everybody get you on the socials there, Tez?
You can find me on Blue Sky at DC Cortez.
All right, you can find me and the show on the Twitter at ChipChatRR. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at RipChipChat. And you can find me on Blue Sky using my old Twitter handle at Chef Chip. And you can, of course, find us every Thursday night here, except maybe not next Thursday night. No, not next Thursday night. Here on Beltway Radio, but then we'll be back the week after that, so it's okay. At 9:30, where we have been for the last 10 years and more. So, yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Swoops.
Slap a bitch.
Damn.
How can we stay late when our guest is Illy Bird? In conclusion, the message is to go out and serve folks, whether that's through art, music, or if you just tell jokes. Seek to medicate your ears, hope you eradicate your fears. Thanks for sticking with us through all these years.